I had such trust from the Oprah show audience that Whitney did, I think it was her last show with us, and she had gone back on drugs. The first interview I did with her when we'd gone behind stage and I asked her about her attention, she was clean. But the day she came to my show then to perform in front of the audience, she was not. And she fell off of the stage.
For years, this story stayed buried. Then Oprah revisited one moment from Whitney Houston's past and everything changed. Almost instantly, questions began spreading across the internet. But those closest to Whitney weren't convinced that was the full story. And Bobby Brown's reaction only made the controversy even harder to ignore.
She was high, man. She fell off the stage. The hell, that's what them drugs do. That's all Oprah was trying to say. Listen.
Someone's version of this story isn't adding up. And now, one of the people closest to Whitney Houston's inner circle is pushing back, insisting there's far more to what happened than the public was ever led to believe. If that's true, everything we thought we knew could be about to change.
If you was really sincere and genuine about people not filming that stuff, then you might as well have told them to film because you brought it up and aired it out anyway.
For nearly 17 years, this moment stayed buried beneath the headlines. Then, without much warning, Oprah Winfrey brought it back into the spotlight just as renewed conversations surrounded Whitney Houston's legacy after Clive Davis's passing. To many viewers, the timing didn't go unnoticed. And Bobby Brown appeared to believe there was far more to the story than what was being shared publicly, because from his perspective, one important piece of Whitney's journey had been left out. He wasn't looking at it as a distant observer. He lived through the hardest chapters beside her. He witnessed the highs, the heartbreak, and the battles that unfolded behind closed doors. That's why he wasn't convinced the public was hearing the complete picture. This became more than another celebrity interview. It became a story about how one public recollection reopened old wounds. How a family found itself defending the memory of someone who could no longer speak for herself. And why Bobby Brown's reaction suddenly pushed an old controversy back into the spotlight when few expected it. So, let's rewind. September 2023. Clive Davis is gone. The legendary music executive who discovered Whitney Houston, helped transform her into a worldwide superstar, and remained connected to many defining moments throughout her career was suddenly back in public conversation. Then Oprah revisited the story of Whitney's fall on stage, explained why she believed something felt different that day, and reflected on an incident she said had remained private for nearly 2 decades. Almost instantly, questions began spreading. Some viewers wondered why the story was resurfacing now. Others believed the timing itself deserved a closer look. And according to public reactions, Bobby Brown was among those who felt the conversation was missing important context. But before deciding what to believe, it's worth hearing exactly what Oprah said, because those few comments would ignite a debate that nobody saw coming.
I knew that if that story got out that she'd fallen off of the stage, that she would be destroyed by that. And so even though the audience was there and the audience had cameras, I begged them not to put those pictures out because it would ruin her life, and they did not.
At first glance, it almost sounds like an act of loyalty. Oprah asking the audience to keep the moment private, determined to protect Whitney's reputation. A media icon seemingly standing between a close friend and public humiliation. But that's only where the story begins. Because the moment Oprah spoke about it on one of the world's biggest stages, the entire conversation took an unexpected turn.
Drug of choice was weed combined with cocaine.
Rock cocaine.
With rock cocaine.
Yeah.
That's where the story takes an unexpected turn. During the 2009 interview, the same appearance Oprah now describes as Whitney's final visit, Whitney spoke openly about her past struggles with drug addiction. She sounded reflective. She sounded honest. And even by Oprah's own account, Whitney appeared clean during their private conversation backstage. But then, according to Oprah, something changed.
She gave it up. She talked about what drug she did to the point where I was like, I'm confused. And Whitney in one moment says, stay with me, Oprah.
Let's slow this down for a second. According to Oprah's account, Whitney appeared completely clean during their private conversation backstage. Then she went out to perform. Then came the fall. And from that moment, Oprah believed Whitney may have relapsed. But here's the question that immediately follows. Who actually witnessed Whitney using drugs that day? Not Oprah. Not the audience. Not anyone publicly identified. And that's exactly where Bobby Brown enters the conversation. Bobby wasn't just another celebrity offering an opinion. He was Whitney's husband. He shared her life. He witnessed the brightest moments, the darkest struggles, and everything in between. More importantly, Bobby openly discussed Whitney's addiction in his memoir, Every Little Step. He never pretended those battles didn't exist. He never tried to rewrite history. He acknowledged the pain, He acknowledged the addiction. And that's why many people paid close attention when his perspective differed from Oprah's version of events. According to reports and public speculation, Bobby strongly disagreed with the narrative that began taking shape after Oprah's comments. For him, the issue wasn't protecting a perfect image of Whitney. It was about making sure assumptions weren't mistaken for facts. Think about it. If Whitney had truly been under the influence that day, Bobby believed he would have recognized the signs better than almost anyone else. He had lived through those difficult years. He had fought beside her. He had watched addiction change someone he deeply loved. Which is exactly why Oprah's interpretation didn't fully align with the way Bobby remembered that chapter of Whitney's life.
Whitney Houston's family, you're a liar, Oprah. She wasn't high on your show. So what if she was? Who would be surprised if Whitney Houston was high on the Oprah Winfrey show? Who would be surprised?
Here's the question almost everyone keeps coming back to. Even if Whitney had been struggling that day, would anyone really have found it surprising? Her battle with addiction had already been discussed publicly. People knew she had faced incredibly difficult years. So that isn't the real issue. The real issue is that Pat Houston tells a very different story. She isn't saying Whitney's struggles never existed. She's saying this specific moment shouldn't be explained by assumptions. And that changes the entire conversation. Now let's focus on what actually happened. The moment Whitney lost her footing on stage. Because that's the incident at the center of this entire debate. According to Oprah's account, the fall appeared to point toward a possible relapse. But Whitney's estate remembers that same moment very differently. Their explanation is that the stage was dark. The area was unfamiliar. And the fall was simply an accident during that environment. Two completely different interpretations. Two completely different conclusions. And that's exactly why Bobby Brown's reaction carries so much attention. Pat Houston was present. She witnessed the situation firsthand. From her perspective, what happened that day has never matched the version many people later came to believe.
Absolutely fell off the stage, but it was during a sound check, and it was due to the darkness of the area and her unfamiliar. If she was high, man. She fell off the stage, then hell, that's what them drugs do.
Pay close attention to one word, assumption, because that's where this entire debate begins to shift. Pat Houston isn't simply dismissing Oprah's account. She's challenging the conclusion that was drawn from what happened. From her perspective, a fall on stage should not automatically be treated as proof of drug use without clear evidence. And that's exactly why Bobby Brown's perspective becomes so important. He didn't know Whitney from a distance. He shared a life with her. He witnessed her struggles up close. He lived through the difficult moments. He fought beside her. So when Oprah publicly suggested that Whitney may have been under the influence that day, Bobby's perspective carried weight because his experience led him to see the situation differently. For him, assumptions alone weren't enough. And that's why this story continues to divide opinions years later.
For her craft, Whitney never showed up on stage high. You couldn't even get her out of her room, if she were high.
That single detail changes everything. If Whitney had truly been in the middle of an active relapse at that exact moment, many people question whether she would have been able to walk on stage and deliver a performance at all. But she did. She stood before the studio audience. She performed. She followed the show as expected. And that's why some believe the moment doesn't fully fit the narrative that quickly took hold afterward.
The first interview I did with her when we'd gone behind stage and I asked her about her intention, she was clean. But the day she came to my show then to perform in front of the audience, she was not. And she fell.
Even by Oprah's own account, Whitney appeared clean before the show. She was composed. She was focused. She spoke openly about the difficult chapters of her past. So what changed? One interpretation is that a woman recovering from addiction simply lost her footing while performing in an unfamiliar, dimly lit area. Another interpretation reached a very different conclusion. That difference became the center of the debate. As the discussion spread, Bobby Brown publicly made it clear that he didn't believe Whitney's story should be reduced to assumptions alone. Then another question started circulating online. Clive Davis had passed away. Almost immediately, older conversations surrounding Whitney Houston began resurfacing across social media and entertainment outlets. People revisited unanswered questions. Old theories reappeared. Long-forgotten debates returned. Around the same time, Oprah reflected on the stage incident, and her comments reignited public discussion about Whitney's struggles with addiction. To some observers, the timing stood out. Others saw it as unrelated. Either way, the conversation quickly shifted back to Whitney's final years, fueling a fresh wave of public debate that few people expected.
Or people could connect those dots. Oprah Winfrey jumped out the window with the Whitney Houston drug allegations, and it seemed like she just doing that to cover up for...
Is that what really happened? Nobody can say for certain. But the timing alone was enough to spark questions across the internet. For many viewers, one thought kept resurfacing. Why now? Why revisit this story after so many years? And why did it happen around the same time Clive Davis was once again part of public conversation? Those questions fueled countless online discussions. Some people believed it was simply the right moment to reflect on Whitney's life. Others wondered whether the renewed focus on her addiction was changing the direction of the public conversation. Whatever the reason, the timing became almost as controversial as the story itself, leaving people to debate what it all really meant.
You don't talk about the Obamas. You don't talk about Whitney Houston. We sensitive about Michael Jackson. And you don't talk about the Kings. That's black royalty that you just don't talk.
This is the part that struck a nerve with Bobby Brown. And according to many public reactions, he wasn't alone. For countless people across the Black community, there's an expectation that when a cultural icon passes away, their legacy should be remembered with dignity. Their greatest achievements should lead the conversation, not the chapters that caused them the deepest pain. That's why Oprah's remarks became so controversial. Some critics felt they conflicted with the trust she had built over decades. And that's where this story takes another unexpected turn. Because for some viewers, the debate surrounding Oprah didn't begin with Whitney, and it certainly didn't end there.
Why would you bring stuff like that up? Why is it when it comes to you and Gail, right after Kobe Bryant died, Gail interviewed Lisa Leslie, if I'm not mistaken, was asking her about a sexual assault case that he was found innocent of. And the fact that y'all are so out of touch with the Black community and been rich so long that you don't even know not to talk about certain things.
For many critics, this wasn't viewed as an isolated controversy. They believed it reflected a broader pattern in how difficult conversations surrounding beloved public figures have sometimes been handled. After Kobe Bryant's passing, Gayle King's interview with Lisa Leslie drew significant backlash for revisiting past allegations during a moment of public mourning. Now, some viewers felt Oprah's comments about Whitney's addiction reopened another painful chapter involving someone who could no longer respond for herself. That comparison quickly spread across social media. And Bobby Brown wasn't the only person questioning whether these stories should have been revisited in that way.
What are people gonna say about you when you die?
This is what's truly at stake. This was never just about one interview from 2009. It's about legacy. It's about how moments like these shape the way people are remembered for years to come. Bobby Brown's response reflected the questions many viewers were already asking. From his perspective, someone needed to challenge the narrative that had taken hold. Someone needed to ask why the story was being revisited now. And one question continued echoing louder than all the rest. Why bring it up at this moment?
Oprah, you're gonna have to apologize to Whitney Houston's family. If these rumors about Bobby Brown pulling up on her is true, I can understand why he did it. He want his family to rest in peace.
For many critics, the expectation became unmistakable. They believed Oprah owed Whitney's family an apology, not only for the comments themselves, but for reopening a deeply personal chapter that many felt should have remained at rest. For decades, Oprah built her reputation by earning people's trust and listening to their most private stories. That's why some viewers felt disappointed by the way this moment unfolded. But before this conversation goes any further, there's another point Bobby Brown and Ricky Smiley believe deserves just as much attention.
There's some people who believe that if you happen to be on drugs, that it is somehow a failure of your ethics or moral being or character. It is not. It is not. You're struggling through an addiction. That's a mental health issue, and you deserve all the support you can get.
This is where many critics believe the conversation lost its way. To them, Whitney's addiction became the focus instead of the remarkable life she lived beyond it. But addiction isn't a measure of someone's character. It's a disease, a mental health struggle that deserves understanding, not judgment. How those stories are told matters. Whitney Houston wasn't defined by her darkest moments. She was defined by her extraordinary talent, her unforgettable voice, and the legacy she left behind. Many believe what she deserved most was compassion, dignity, and respect from those who knew her story. Bobby Brown understands that reality better than most. He lived through those painful years. He witnessed addiction up close, and he knows how deeply those battles can affect the people left behind.
Houston's legacy was never her struggle. It was always her gift. He invoked her Super Bowl national anthem and her gospel recordings as the truest testimony of who she...
When people remember Whitney Houston, they remember moments that defined generations. They remember the unforgettable Super Bowl national anthem. They remember the gospel performances. They remember a voice that inspired millions around the world. For many fans, that's the legacy they believe deserves to remain at the center of every conversation. Not a single painful chapter. Not one disputed incident. Not one moment viewed through competing interpretations. So why did Bobby Brown's response resonate with so many people? Because unlike most commentators, he experienced Whitney's struggles from the inside. He wasn't simply watching events unfold from a distance. He lived through the victories. He lived through the heartbreak. He witnessed the devastating impact addiction could have on the people he loved. That's why his perspective became part of the public debate, even if others reached different conclusions. Pat Houston has consistently said the family wants Whitney to be remembered through facts rather than speculation. For them, protecting her legacy means keeping the focus on the extraordinary artist the world fell in love with, not allowing renewed debates to overshadow everything she achieved. To many supporters, Bobby Brown's response wasn't about creating another controversy. It was about defending someone who could no longer speak for herself. It was about reminding people that every public figure leaves behind a family, a legacy, and a story that deserves care. As criticism spread online, conversations about Oprah's comments continued across social media and entertainment outlets. Some viewers defended her decision to share her perspective. Others believed the discussion should have remained private. That disagreement became part of a much larger conversation about trust, responsibility, and how the stories of cultural icons should be remembered after they're gone. And perhaps that's the question that still refuses to disappear. When powerful voices revisit painful memories years later, where is the line between reflection and reopening old wounds? Whatever answer people choose, one thing is certain. Whitney Houston's legacy continues to inspire millions. And the conversation surrounding that legacy is far from over. Maybe the biggest question still hasn't been answered. Was this simply Oprah sharing her perspective, or did reopening Whitney Houston's story create even more questions than answers? And if those closest to Whitney still challenge that narrative, what does that mean for everything we've heard over the years? Share your thoughts below. Do you believe Bobby Brown had every right to speak out, or was Oprah simply telling her side of the story? If more details emerge, this conversation could take an even more unexpected turn.